Good evening, Bershus. With the permission of friends old and new, tonight we begin the last Mishnah in the first parak. We finally made it, so to speak. Let's get right down to the brass tacks of the last Mishnah of the first parak. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Al shlosh dvarim ha'olam kayam." On three things is the world established: al adin, on judgment; al emes, on truth; al hashalom, and on peace. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who is he? Some say he's the same Shimon that was mentioned in our previous Mishnah. As we said last night, that the reason why he didn't have the term Rabban in front of his name is simply because the dictum of the previous Mishnah was authored prior to him achieving the status of Nasi of Klal Yisrael. Here, while he's already the Nasi of Klal Yisrael and he's achieved that position, therefore we've attached to his name Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Others maintain and contend, and this is the vast majority opinion, that he's not the same Shimon at all from the previous Mishnah. Rather, he's actually the grandson of the Shimon from the previous Mishnah and the son of Rabban Gamliel of Yavna, and the father of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi, who happens to be the author of the next Mishnah, the beginning of the second parak. Rabbi say, the Gemara in Sanhedrin relates, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah tells us the Sanhedrin in that period of time moved from town to town as a result of all of the persecutions of the Roman Empire against the Jews during that period of time. So the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah tells us what happened to the Sanhedrin. It went from Meyavne le'Usha, from Yavne to Usha, Ume'usha le'Yavne, and from Usha to Yavne. And lo and behold, Umeyavne le'Usha, and back from Yavne to Usha again. So you see that the Sanhedrin was not merely located in one particular spot, only in Yerushalayim, but rather moved around a lot. And the reason why it moved around a lot was in order that the Chachamim sought to maintain a balance in society, that with the Sanhedrin still acting despite the Roman persecutions and the Hellenizations, that still there was a continuity of Torah and Mesorah for the general populace. Now this particular Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel that we mentioned in this Mishnah, there are hundreds of Mishnayos and hundreds of Braisos in which his name is mentioned. And the Gemara tells us in Ksubas that whenever Rab Shimon ben Gamliel's name is mentioned, the halacha is kamoisai, that the halacha is like him, except in three instances. In only three instances. My friends, as we come to the last Mishnah in the first parak, the Gemara in Baba Kama tells us the following statement. Haiman de boy lemevi chasida. Who is the man who comes or achieves to become a chassid? A person who acts lifnim mishur sadin. A person who goes above and beyond the call of duty. And the last statement of the Gemara is lakayim mili de'avos. A person who establishes the words of their forefathers. Every night, for the last several weeks, I've attempted to convey the sayings of my forefathers, from my father, Rav Yaakov Simcha Cohen, and my grandfathers, Rav Meir HaKohen Zatzal and Rav Yaakov Naiman Zatzal. Tonight again, as we conclude the first parak of ethics of our fathers, or chapters of our fathers, I will again endeavor to relate something that my father liked and loved to relate. Briefly, and firstly, let's analyze the Mishnah a little in depth. What does Reb Shimon ben Gamliel say? He says, "Ashlosha devarim ha'olam kayam." On three things does the world, or is the world, established. So the question that springs to the mind immediately, our prima facie thought is, what exactly is the difference between Reb Shimon ben Gamliel's dictum here in the last Mishnah and more or less the first or second Mishnah in Pirkei Avot of Shimon HaTzadik, who says, "Shalsha devarim ha'olam omed." On three things does the world stand. What did Shimon HaTzadik say then, in the beginning of Pirkei Avot? Shalsha devarim ha'olam omed. On three things does the world stand. Al Torah, on Torah. Al avodah, on work or labor, or the work and labor of Torah. And loving kindness to one's fellow man. In other words, what's the difference between this maxim of Shimon HaTzadik when he says Omed, that the world stands, versus this Mishnah of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who says Kayam, that the world exists. So on the one hand, you have Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim, as Shimon HaTzadik said. Those are the building blocks and foundation, the so-called ingredients and blueprint to build a universe and a world. On the other hand, once the world and existence and creation already has come into being, once it is already built, it requires nutrients. It requires maintenance to continue its existence in order to flourish. So thus, once sprang the world from yesh me'ayin, from nothingness, from creatio ex nihilo, via Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim, its very existence and continuity needed constant maintenance through din, emes, and shalom, judgment, truth, and peace. Whenever I looked at this Mishnah and it said truth and justice, I really always thought of the old Superman television series, and Truth, Justice, and the American Way, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. But when one really looks, it's a little bit more than that opening line in the Superman series, the black and white series of the 1950s. Here, the Torah way, the Jewish way, is Torah, is din, it's judgment, it's truth, it's emes, and above all, with its concluding, its coup de grace, is shalom, is peace. So after God creates the world itself, it springs into being. The first living entity, thing that Hashem creates are with the following words: Tad sheha oretz desha. Let grass spring forth. Grass is a living thing. It requires nutrients, water, and light, and it reproduces and it grows. So the first living thing in the universe created by God was grass. But interestingly enough, after the world is created, and then God creates the first living thing, Tad sheha oretz desha. Desha, which is synonymous with life itself, grass, has a different interpretation. You see, Desha is really Rosh Teves, or an acronym for Din, Daled, Shin, Shalom, and Aleph, Emes. Tad sheha oretz desha. Rabbi say, the Medrash Rabbi in Bereshis relates a very famous tale. The Medrash says that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu desired to create the world, Chesed came before the Bezdin Shomala, the heavenly court, and said, "Create the world, yes, God, for it will contain kindness within it." Chesed. Emes came along and stood in the dock and said to Hashem, do not create the world, for the world will be filled with lies. Emes. Then came Shalom, then came peace. And peace says, don't create the world, God, because it will be filled and replete with enmity between man. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Emes and threw it to the ground. The question is, my father asks, why was only truth thrown to the ground? Why not Shalom, peace also? They also opposed creation. So my father liked to quote and cite lovingly the Kotzker Rebbe, who explained, when Emes was eliminated, then Shalom had an opportunity to prevail. Rabbi say, Lefi ani asdaiti, I'd like to suggest and posit the following. When a person dies, we say, Rip, rest in peace, rest in Shalom. When a person dies, we say, Baruch dayin ha'emes, blessed be the God of truth. When a person dies, and there's no one around to bury him, there are no relatives, and the community and people band together through chesed, we say that this is the greatest mitzvah of all of Torah. And we say this is a chesed shel emes, a kind act of truth. So chesed and emes, which could not coexist in the creation of the world, according to that medrash. Perhaps, Rabbi say, perhaps, maybe, only in death, when the neshama, when the soul of man is reunited with his creator, only then does chesed, shalom, and emes coexist. Good night.